Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I'm so glad you're here with us today. If you're the kind of person who just loves unpacking complex concepts, well, you're in the exact right place. Today, we're diving into this absolutely fascinating intersection where ancient botanical pharmacology meets modern clinical data. We're going to look at a medical phenomenon that affects literally millions of people and discover how traditional natural solutions are being validated by contemporary science in ways that are, honestly, pretty astonishing.
To really grasp the sheer physical and emotional toll of this condition, I want you to picture something for a second. Imagine a really high-contrast, moody, cinematic shot. It's a minimalist glass hourglass, but instead of sand, there's this thick, crimson-red liquid dripping down, drop by slow drop. It's a visceral, relentless drain. And honestly, it perfectly represents the sheer exhaustion and that steady, daily loss of vitality experienced by women who suffer from heavy menstrual bleeding.
So this brings us to the core mystery of our medical deep dive today. How exactly does ancient botanical science step in and actually halt the draining of these vital fluids? I mean, when modern medicine looks to synthesize solutions in a lab, what can we actually learn from the ultimate organic chemical factories, the trees and plants, that have literally been solving this problem for thousands of years? Okay, let's dive right into it. The condition we're looking at is traditionally known in Ayurvedic medicine as Asrugdara. It basically means excessive and prolonged bleeding during menstruation, or even bleeding that just pops up randomly between periods. In modern clinical terms, we generally call this heavy menstrual bleeding, or Menorrhagia. And it's not just an inconvenience, right? It's a condition that completely disrupts everyday life, drains your energy, and fundamentally alters your overall well-being.
Now, what I find really remarkable here is how both modern and traditional medical systems view the root cause of this condition. They use slightly different lenses, but they are totally parallel. The modern view points to disturbances in the endometrial blood vessels, often tied to a delicate imbalance in prostaglandins. But then, look at the Ayurvedic view. It describes a state where vitiated vayu, or disturbed bodily wind, increases the amount of rakta, or blood, which leads to a functional disturbance. So, what's the takeaway? Both systems are describing this finely tuned internal balance that has just been completely thrown out of whack, resulting in all that excess output.
To restore this balance, traditional medicine turns to the forest. Let's look at part 1, Mocha Rasa, the healing resin.
This source of this highly specialized, blood-stopping resin is the Somali Malabarica. You might know it better as the red silk cotton tree. And the extraction process? It is incredibly deliberate. As you can see right here, these careful, blunt incisions are made directly into the tree's inner bark, going right into the cortex. And timing is everything. This is done precisely during the hot summer months, like April and May, because that's when the plant's nutritional transportation is hitting its absolute peak. The tree essentially responds to this controlled injury by secreting a defensive, healing liquid, a super potent secondary metabolite.
And this brilliantly illustrates the transformation. Check out the left side. That's the fresh exudate. It's this sticky, kind of jelly-like, reddish-brown liquid. But the magic happens when it hits the air. It oxidizes. Over a few months, it dries out and solidifies into that dark, blackish-brown nodular mass you're seeing on the right. This solidified chunk is the raw, highly potent therapeutic resin we call Mocha Rasa.
We've seen how the forest produces this compound. Now let's explore part 2, formulating the cure, and dig into the actual botanical pharmacology.
Ancient texts basically break down the therapeutic actions of this resin into two primary functions, Sandhana and Skandana. So Sandhana refers to wound healing, and the plant pulls this off through its astringent properties, or what's called Kashai rasa. It physically binds and constricts the tissues. Skandana, on the other hand, is all about coagulation. The resin possesses this cooling energy, sheet virya, which actually actively promotes the clotting of the blood. It's a brilliant dual-action system, really. It constricts the wound and it clots the fluid.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how modern science beautifully validates those traditional concepts. Pharmacologically speaking, Mocha Rasa acts as a potent hemostatic agent, meaning it triggers vasoconstriction. It actively inhibits inflammatory cytokines and prostaglandin synthesis. And remember, we just talked about how prostaglandin imbalance is a key modern trigger for heavy bleeding, right? Plus, the resin is absolutely packed with phenolic compounds and flavonoids. These guys are out there neutralizing free radicals and literally protecting the membranes of your red blood cells, your erythrocytes, from destruction and lysis. It is defending your blood right down at the cellular level.
Bringing it all together, we can really clearly see a systemic cascade here. By applying the astringent and cooling nature of the resin, the body experiences a drop in Pitta Dosha, which is the metabolic heat energy. This systemic cooling and binding effect goes to work directly normalizing those endometrial blood vessels and capillaries. The structural integrity of the uterine lining gets reinforced, and boom, that excessive bleeding is finally halted.
Now, of course, having a potent botanical is only half the battle, right? You actually have to get it into the patient's system effectively. And this is where the concept of Anupana comes in. Anupana is basically the delivery vehicle. You see, these powerful resins aren't just swallowed dry, they're administered with specific vehicles like warm water, honey, or milk. This is absolutely crucial because it ensures optimal systemic absorption, carrying those active ingredients directly to where the body needs them the very most.
Let's move along and see how this builds into the final phase of patient recovery. Here's part 3, restoring vital iron.
So think about it. Once that crimson hourglass has finally been halted, the patient is left in a severely depleted state. To test natural ways to replenish the body, researchers set up this really fascinating study. They cultured yeast cells and used an iron-stripping compound called BPS to essentially create, well, anemic cells. Then they compared these starving cells to ones placed in a medium supplemented with just 10% pomegranate juice. And you know, pomegranate has long been used traditionally as a dietary supplement for iron deficiency anemia, so it was the perfect test subject.
And the results? They were nothing short of incredible. The introduction of just that 10% pomegranate juice improved the functional ferrous iron status in the cells by a staggering 7-fold. 7 times! And it didn't just boost the inert, stored iron, it actually improved the bio-assimilated functional form of iron. That's the exact type of iron that cells actively use to survive and thrive. So the crucial point here is this. It goes way beyond just dumping iron back into the system. If you look at this chart, notice how the fundamental health of the cellular engines, the mitochondria, was dramatically reversed. The percentage of healthy reticulate mitochondria in the cells given the pomegranate supplement was over 30% higher than in the iron-deficient cells. The juice actually reversed the mitochondrial degeneration that was caused by the anemia in the first place. It's literally systemic cellular repair, all coming from a simple fruit extract.
Which leaves us with a pretty profound thought to wrap up our explainer today. We've seen a sticky resin from a silk cotton tree orchestrate this complex vasoconstriction to halt severe hemorrhaging. We've seen the juice of a pomegranate rebuild cellular iron and literally rescue dying mitochondria. It really forces us to ask, what other perfectly engineered life-saving cures are out there just waiting quietly in the forest for us to understand them?
Thank you so much for learning with me today. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll see you next time.